Detective Comics 1055, Mariko Tamaki writing, with Amanke Nahilpin. I'm probably butchering that name, apologies.
I think you nailed it.
But that's them on the art. So yeah, obviously we had the incident finally arrived end of last issue. And this one kind of kicks off with like the media reporting on, something's went down at Arkham Tower. It was supposed to be this new bastion of moving forward in the city. Oh, it turns out the word Arkham is still cursed and we're all still doomed, like always. So
same old Gotham.
Pretty much.
Yeah. And just like with other Gotham, corruption seemed to, lead this astray because it could have been fine. But Ware decided he was going to take the money and then a swan dive.
Yeah, well, I mean, to be fair, Ware was sort of planning on doing something malicious the entire time, so it was kind of fundamental from the get-go.
Corruption. Yeah. You can't have nice things in Gotham. This is the first issue where it made me feel like Connor, where how he's described a lot of the last issues.
Mm-hmm.
I felt this one, I could feel it kind of was like a lull, even though it's the beginning of the third act. Up until the end when it ramped back up.
There's a lot of pages and not a lot of plot.
Yeah, but I do like a lot of the character stuff here, like a lot of the stuff with Helena versus the villains and that type of stuff. But yeah, there's I could feel the lull in this part, but I've trusted them up to this point, so I'm sure it'll stick the landing. So I'm not worried at all. But yeah.
Just a question, because I may be just misremembering. They mentioned Steph's undercover in there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Who is she under there? Have we seen her much?
Yeah, we saw her go in last issue.
We saw her go in, and she's in the crowd with the media.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah. I was thinking for some reason I was like, was she there the whole time, like undercover in there the whole time?
No,
she was going for the media event for the grand opening.
We knew she was in there by the time the event happened because she was mentioned in issue 1 as being in there, but obviously
only Dick's undercover as an orderly and Helena's undercover as a patient.
Yeah. So obviously here we're finally back to, well, if it is indeed Harley, we're still the jury's still out.
Yeah, right. But I think last issue they went closer towards hinting it, right?
Yeah. So we're actually finally at kind of like picking up the threads of what issue 1 teased, which I think made it feel like a nice, well-rounded kind of thing. You got Nightwing sort of running around with Psycho Pirate, although Psycho Pirate does duck out at some point.
He carries him at one point, which I thought was hilarious.
Yeah. And we sort of see that Anna Volshin tried to get to Nakano's wife, but she did get away. Which Huntress intervened, and that's what led to her bleeding out in the elevator shaft. But she gets back up. Mr. Freeze is on a rampage. I kind of loved the coloring in all of his pages because he's in this sort of red lit hallway, presumably from it because there's like danger, red alert lights on everywhere. But all of his ice, of course, is this nice cool blue, contrasting with it.
Disappointed to be wrong. That no, he's still just trying to freeze everybody. Yeah,
he just needed
freeze.
He just needed his freeze gun back. That's all.
Yeah.
Which they were just keeping lying around.
Yeah, that seems reckless.
Well, we know Dr. Ware's a bit of a fraud, so I'm not surprised that he's.
I'm actually surprised he didn't try to sell that stuff off to their games.
Put it on eBay. Authentic Mr. Freeze gun. That's fair. Yeah, Psycho Pirate runs off though whilst Nightwing's encountering Freeze because Nightwing tries to help. And Nightwing ends up sliding into a big hole that's been created because he slides it off down the ice and then into the hole,
which seems to be a stupidly deep chasm.
Yes.
At least judging by the way they've done the lettering with the echo of her shouting Nightwing down it.
Yeah. The big thing though is that someone grabs Nightwing once he's landed. And we have another big villain sort of introduced into the story. Someone who I presume is just in here the whole time. We haven't been focusing on them or seeing them. But we're introduced to Scarecrow. So it's kind of like falling on a little bit from the Fear State stuff that he's in here and has something to do, not necessarily with what's been going on, but he's now going to do something that he's open.
Seems like he's going to take advantage of his circumstances.
Yeah. Because it says next time at the end, state of fear, so it's obviously harkening back to that. And he's got Nightwing all tied up, and he's still got the same outfit design, so he's still got that look. It doesn't look quite the same because it's a different artist, of course, but it is the same general design though, to what he was wearing.
The creepy gas mask.
Creepy gas mask with a straw hat.
The broad hat.
Yeah. So, and some of the villains are debating what they should do. Psycho Pirate's the one that ends up with Nakano's wife, and basically says he was supposed to like try and go to her, because if she's kept safe,
they'll get their money.
Yeah, pretty much. That was kind of the idea. But Psycho Pirate says that he's failed and now he can't like control anyone anymore. At least for a while. I guess he's just too emotionally distraught. Like he's
tapped. Yeah, he's tapped out.
So, yeah, I mean, I suppose I can kind of see the complaint that there's not really a whole lot of advancement in this issue. I think what it did though is that we're 8 weeks removed from that first issue of this, and I think the reason why it takes its time just kind of establishing where all the characters are is just to link you back up to where they all were teased in that first issue. So
I mean, this is a 12-issue thing. There was bound to be lulls, and for me, I'm happy it took 8 issues to get there. Like, I'm not that upset by it. I still enjoyed. It just felt like it's spinning its wheels a little.
I definitely feel like it's a 12-issue story that could have probably been 8 and been a lot tighter.
Maybe. I think with this, it's they know it's been 8 weeks since you read that first issue, and I think when we read the first issue, I thought we'd be jumping back and forth a lot more, where it was actually a lot more just sequential once it jumped back, by and large, once we went from issue 2 onwards. I mean, it jumped around a little bit here or there, but it wasn't like jumping to like post issue 1 to back to the backstory. No. It was all backstory for the most part, building up to the event.
That first issue is definitely a hook.
Yeah. And
it's the cold open essentially for that issue,
and to be fair, it did work really well in the sense that I do think that there's been this sort of ticking clock feeling to a lot of this book up until this point, and TV overuses it
I'm so
much.
Sick of seeing
that. But I think this arc though has been a very good example of how it's actually added to the tension, because you're kind of waiting for the breaking point happening, so it's bubbling the entire time. But TV does overuse it, and it tends to just be all of the actions at the end of the episode, so we want to just take a little bit of it and put it at the start, just so that everyone knows there's action coming.
Yeah, comics tends not to do it too much beyond it being just in the same issue as when they're doing it, because as a rule, they're monthly, and it takes you a long time to get up to that point again, and people will definitely forget. Whereas this, when you're doing it weekly, you've got a lot more leeway with that.
Yeah. But creatively, I think there was a valid reason for it here, as opposed to just,
I think I think for my taste, I think it went on a little bit too long before we got to this point overall.
I think that just goes back to the complaint of it being maybe a little bit too long overall.
I do like though that like we've bounced back between the Bats, the Bat Squad led by Babs.
Yeah.
Right, and you have the Party Crashers, and where there's all these different threads that we can pop in and out of. So,
Yeah. No, I get it. And I'm mostly still enjoying it. I think it was more. Yeah. They described it as, okay, each month there's like Act 1, Act 2, Act 3. I feel like we probably should have got towards this point, like, during Act 2.
Halfway through Act 2.
Yeah, rather than, okay, we're in the final. I mean, that's 3 issues left after this.
Additional story structure we're all kind of used to.
Yeah. I don't actually have as much of a problem with the pacing, I guess, but I will say Scarecrow's inclusion does feel a little bit out of nowhere to me.
Yeah.
That's probably my one critique and it may be really cool whatever they do with them now, but like it did kind of feel like, oh wait, we're doing Scarecrow stuff? All right, I guess.
I think it's a combination of, one, we just had a huge Scarecrow thing for like a year.
Yeah.
With the Fear State stuff, and 2, you're introducing 3 issues before the end now. We've got 3 issues to play with this stuff. And whereas if we had, let's say if this was like, the start of Act 2 and we had, another 7 issues to go, we had like 2/3 of the story still to tell, I think I'd be more open to it.
If I was to speculate the point of Scarecrow being introduced, is I wonder if he's going to like use a bunch of fear toxin, and then like Psycho Pirate, almost doing something for the good guys, is going to have to try and like counteract it with his ability. To calm everyone down. I could see them maybe, and that's why he's been introduced, perhaps.
I will say that I do like that this is going off of where we left Scarecrow, how he was kind of hiding in plain sight. How in the lead up to Fear State was he was leaving like the scarecrows around and genning up this fear base. And so here, if he was in the Arkham Tower, right? Like if he was just laying in wait, but because didn't Batman drop him off? Thought he dropped him off at Blackgate, not Arkham. Because of there was no Arkham left.
Yeah, that probably sounds right, but I assume they just transferred him to this tower with all the other.
It's just weird that they never mentioned that they had him, though, right?
Yeah.
Like when we did that tour of, here's all the villains, and it's like, here's Freeze. He's our one big name that we've kind of got left.
Which makes me wonder if he was hiding in plain sight. You know what I mean? Like.
Yeah, what if Scarecrow wasn't a patient? What if he got out of Blackgate at some point and just snuck in here?
Doctors.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah.
It was possible. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if next issue is that, let's go back and see how Scarecrow got here.
If we do that, I'm going to complain again. Because... No.
Why?
Well, sure, that makes sense. But like, oh my God, we've just spent 8 issues going back to for what we've just done on this story. We're finally moving forward, getting towards the end. We're going back
Well,
again.
I'm not assuming it's going to be the whole issue. I'm assuming there'll be some flashbacks as the main story is still progressing.
Possibly.
And I think that's perfectly okay.
If we're doing a full flashback issue again, I am not going to be happy with that.
You're never happy though. What did people think of the art? Because this is the first issue of the third artist.
It's fine. It matches the last two. Yeah,
it's not a big dramatic shift where it feels like
it complements. I shouldn't say matches. It complements. They all feel kind of the same vibe. Helps that they feel they have the same colorist and inkers.
Probably, I assume. I haven't checked, but
to keep that continuity.
I don't know about inkers, but probably color. Jodie Belair on colors, so yeah, she'll have been on it the whole time, sure.
Yeah. The only real critique I would have is that occasionally when he does like a full body shot, sometimes they look a little bit wide. Like I noticed it with Freeze's full page spread. It's just a little bit wide, generally speaking. I think Scarecrow as well at the end, like his full page when he's holding Nightwing.
Yeah.
It just looks just a little bit stocky because he looks a little bit wider, perhaps in the hips and stuff.
While I don't disagree with it in general, I think for those two, kind of, I like the idea of Freeze being a bit, his suit is a bit bulky.
Sure.
And Scarecrow, he's got the kind of loose robes on, so again, that kind of makes sense that he feels bigger than he is. But I don't disagree that that it does happen a couple of times in this issue. I tend to actually quite like those choices.
I would agree. I would agree with Freeze more than Scarecrow. I think Scarecrow, I think of as very scrawny.
Normally, yes, but like I say, he's wearing very flowing, loose-fitting kind of robes here that like even that you can see the trousers are really baggy in the silhouette. So that makes sense.
Yeah,
to me. But he's trying. It's Scarecrow trying to make himself more imposing.
Yeah, but you also look at his Nightwing that when he's tied to the chair, and he's a little bit bulky too.
Sure.
So I think that's just the style.
Which is why I'm saying it is definitely likely not just an artistic choice, but I actually like the end result on the Scarecrow and Freeze, even though it's probably a quote-unquote mistake.
Yeah, okay. Back up. We shift forward in time to No Man's Land, timeline-wise.
The kid cannot catch a break in his life.
He's just learning to walk.
Yeah, he's in rehab, and there's an earthquake.
Which is definitely making us question who the hell this is again, because this doesn't seem like Nero anymore, right? Because he seems to be just trotting around just fine.
Yeah, and Nero's is so like, because at this point this kid's so much more layered and sympathetic, and Nero's just like a psychopath at this point. From what we've seen of him. But yeah, so it's like No Man's Land time period. He's with this girl that he's befriended from rehab, and they ended up joining like some sort of gang. There's this like guy that they're working for, Poet. That's right, yeah, poet, and basically he sends them out to go and like steal food from people, and gets really mad, and he's really abusive if they don't come back with anything. And it turns out Killer Croc stole this like campsite's food. So he sends our main kid and a little group out after him to get the food. And the main kid basically just bargains with Croc. There's some nice art here, of course, from Frankie Villa when Croc like pops out and like grabs her by the neck and.
You mean
Fornes. Oh, Blanco, I mean.
Blanco, what did I say?
There you go.
You said Francavilla.
I said Francavilla.
Yeah.
I mean, not a million miles away stylistically. So
Yeah, I'm getting my F's mixed up. Let's be honest.
Yep. Fernando Blanco.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so but the kid basically says, "Look, how about we make some sort of pact. We can help you out. You can help us out. There's no reason for this to be something we can't have." And Croc says, "Oh, so I'm supposed to give you a favor?" Well, yeah. As it so happens, I do have something I want you to do. So the ending of this show is that you don't see it, but you just sort of hear the roars. The idea that he's asked Croc to come and kill Poet, so that they're not going to be like held captive by this monster anymore. So once again, it's a famous Gotham villain who's ends up in a bit of an ally.
I kind of love this stuff though. He kind of goes off and he's just like, "Come on, Waylon, what are you playing at?" Like everyone's there, like ready to fight. Croc, and it's like big scary Croc. You got to take him away. He's the monster, as they're calling him. He's like, don't worry about it. I got this, guys. Just cool it.
Yeah, it's a bunch of kids, maybe in their late teens, maybe just hitting 20, with sticks, maybe a machete, and they think they're gonna take on Killer Croc on their own. I
love that he yells put her down and then smacks him with the whatever club he has, and he's like, "You want to test me? Like you already hit him. Like he already knows.
You want a taste?
Yeah. So
probably should say that to Croc actually, because he will literally actually taste you.
Yeah. Also, there is acknowledgement. Croc mentions the fake Batman tried to kill you, and the kid. So the acknowledgement that wasn't the same Batman he was terrified of, and he knows that.
Right.
Yeah, at some point he found that out over the presumably when the real Batman came back, it was made more clear that there was another one running around.
It's kind of just clear again because continuity these days is wonky as to what did or didn't happen exactly as we always read it. But it's like, okay, it's clear the public was by the end of it aware that no, that was kind of that was someone else running around. It wasn't Batman just had a bit of a moment.
I mean, I've been enjoying this kid interacting with the various villains, and that's kind of been there since like the very first story or the first chapter of this. But it's kind of oddly become this nice little trip through Batman history, like current continuity from a post-crisis Batman onwards, and so now I'm almost like trying to predict what's next. What's the next thing that we're got? The next time period we're going to be in.
I want to see an issue during like 52 where Batman's gone.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
It could be 52.
Or with
and then you've got to do one.
Dick was Batman.
Yeah, I was gonna say you got to do one while Dick. That's pretty towards the end. While Dick's
yeah.
Batman. Like,
I'm just wondering if there's something before 52 era though, because like that's like 2006, and this is like 99 2000 in terms of like real world publishing time.
Right, but we jumped from.
We jumped from Nightfall to No Man's Land.
That's like 6-7 years, admittedly. Yeah, so we could jump that much again.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm trying to think what are the next big hallmarks.
We've only got 3 left.
You got,
so if you do.
Yeah, that's true. You've only got 3 left, so yeah, probably will jump a big
52
chunk.
where there is essentially no Batman in Gotham.
Right.
Then you do one where he's back. You probably want one where Dick's Batman.
You may not get both Dick and 52. I feel like you may get one or the other.
No, you might get one or the other.
Yeah.
I think I'd prefer having Dick there because again, it will play into him recognizing the different Robins and kind of playing off of that, and, also having different Batmans as
and
well.
Damien presumably should be around for one of them.
Yeah,
as the next one.
He's met all the other Robins, so I think he has to. Yeah.
Well, it would be great is if
do that with Dick as Batman, right?
You do that as Dick, and then he realizes like this is a different Batman with a different Robin because their attitudes are switched. But he also has to face Batman at some point.
That's the last chapter. Yeah, that's the last chapter.
So I'm wondering, like, and that's more current.
In the one where he sees Dick as Batman, does he recognize that it's the original Robin? In the same way that he recognized that all the Robins were different.
I think the other important part of that, though, as well, I think, is that at that time it was believed that Batman was dead, and I think the idea of him coping or like reacting to the death of Batman is an interesting beat to look at as well.
That's true.
Yeah.
So. There's definitely interesting things that could go down. It would surprise me if you get one set during either Court or Rules of Death in the Family, something around the New 52 is one of them. I suspect the final chapter though will be not necessarily exactly present day, but it'll be recent Batman. It will be like Rebirth era into Infinite Frontier Batman somewhere. The idea being that we were up to like modern times, and this is where he is now.
Yeah.
So, that'll be interesting. All right, what are we rating, Matt? What are you giving the main story?
I'm gonna give the main story a 7.5.
All right, and backup?
An 8.
All right, Connor, main story?
6.5.
Okay, and the backup?
An 8.5. Really enjoying the backup.
Yeah, I'll agree with Matt on the main story, 7.5, and I'll go with a solid 8 on the backup.